Namaste and welcome to our yoga session today. And I'd just like to explain a little bit about what we'll be practicing. So this is a practice called Purva Mukhatasana in Sanskrit, which basically gets translated as the joint freeing exercises. So these are a series of subtle movements that are beneficial for everybody to some degree or other, but are said to be exceptionally good for issues such as rheumatoid arthritis, high blood pressure, any joint issues in particular. And if really vigorous exercise is not recommended for you, but it can be also helpful if you've sat for a little while or if you've been recovering from a cold or an illness. And you can adapt all of these movements to suit how you feel. So don't feel that you have to do everything in this session. You know, if you're just coming back from an injury or an illness, I'd like to really take your time. And if something feels too much, just fast forward to the next section and just do a little bit at a time, sort of build up where you can and use this recording to help with that process. You know, and I always advise everyone who comes to class, you know, just do the best that you can. You know, stop when you need to. If there's more room to do more, then enjoy that. But don't force yourself to go through everything. So this particular series is floor-based, but you can adapt this to be on a chair. You can do this lying in bed to some degree. Everything can be sort of modified to suit you. But for this purpose, I'm going to demonstrate just on the floor base. I'm going to be sitting on my mat. If you prefer, you could lean back against the wall for a while if that feels better. So I've got a little cushion here, and if you like something to sit on, that might feel helpful. Again, just whatever works for you. So let's get ready. Let's settle in, and you don't have to mimic me in any way, shape, or form. So you don't have to sit cross-legged if that doesn't work in your body. But I'd like you to find a position where you can just start to check in anticipation and preparation for this practice. So if that means sitting on a chair, please sit on a chair. Please use wall space, lean against the wall, lean against the sofa, whatever you have around you, but be comfortable. And I'd like you just to take a little time to, again, ideally sitting. If you're lying down, then so be it. But sitting upright, eyes can be closed or softly focused. And let's just take a little time to prepare. It's always helpful for whatever practice of yoga you take to have this sort of grounding, this rooting aspect of just connecting to the now. Remember, life will continue around you as you're taking your practice. So whether your environment is noisy or busy, just like the mind, sometimes it can be a very busy place in the mind. Other times it can be a little subdued. And we're just acknowledging all of that without judgment. It is what it is. Appreciating how you feel, all of it, all the good and bad stuff, as we like to label our lives to some degree. And then as you've found that moment, maybe you can pay a little bit more attention as you draw your focus to the space to really notice which areas feel great, which areas of your body just need a little bit more time and attention. You can take time to notice your mood, how you're feeling energetically. So in this practice of Purva Mukhatasana, it's a little more subtle than just joint freeing. The language we use, the Purva, it relates to an energy, sometimes known as prana, might be a more familiar word. So energy, this is a freeing blockages or helping to remove blockages which prevent this energy to flow freely. in the mind as well as the body. What connects us to this prana, this energy, is our awareness of the breath. Remember, energy is all around us. It's within us and everything we see around us. But we can filter it through our systems, through the air that we breathe in and out. The air carries the prana with it. So I'd like you to start to think about, if possible, breathing in and out through the nose. No forcing. If that doesn't feel comfortable, you just do the best that you can. But encouraging a free-flowing breath in through both nostrils. And as a consequence of the breath coming in, we feel the belly expand gently, rib cage moves, upper chest area. Main areas where the respiratory system sort of works. And as you exhale, releasing from this upper chest cavity and then the mid chest or rib cage, down into the belly, the diaphragm that initiates all movement, all breath and movement of that breath. So you're breathing in, feeling the belly, the ribs, the chest expand. And then that's softly breathing out through the nose if possible, upper chest, ribs, belly. Beginning to get an evenness of this inhalation and exhalation. And this is a crucial part of our practice, connecting to the yogic breath, conscious breathing. So gently, no force, remember, breathing in, diaphragm begins to move. So as a consequence, the rib cage muscles move up into the upper chest. And as you exhale, those muscles relax. You feel the rib cage sort of shrink, wrap a little bit more around towards the lungs. And this movement is flowing in a circular motion as well as up and down. So it's expanding out in all directions. I really want you to sort of spend a little time with this breath, and it will help you as we move through some of the movements. Do that a couple more times, breathing in, breathing out. And if it helps, you could say to yourself silently, I'm breathing in and breathing out. Or you could count. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Let's just do that a few more moments. Let you enjoy that quietly. And after that next exhalation, just let go of the effort a little bit. If you're using the phrase or the count, I'll keep reminding you about the breath as we move through our movements. But let's just have a little wiggle. So you could extend your legs out if they've been folded, if they've already been folded, or bent if you're on a chair. And just have a little wiggle. Wiggle your bottom, wiggle your legs a little bit, give them a little bit of a shake out. And to work through this series of movements, I'm just going to move back a little bit so you can see, because we're going to start with the feet. We're going to work our way up the length of the body, working through all the sort of key joint areas. So we start with the feet, and maybe turn sideways and you get a better view. And we're just going to see if we can work on the toes, not the ankle joint, just the toes. And I want you to curl all your toes up. And then extend the toes. And again, small movements. So try and sort of mimic what I'm demonstrating. You look at your feet and just feel the toes, just the toes curling and releasing. And we just keep that going. If it's too much sitting, remember, use a block to sit on or a cushion, or go back to your chair. Bend the knees a little bit if things feel tight here. You want everything to feel comfortable. And if you find it too much doing both feet at the same time, you can do one foot at a time. But for this session, I'm going to do both. And ideally, I say ideally, what we're looking for is to have about 10 repetitions of most of these movements. But don't worry about keeping up with that. If you haven't worked like this for a while, these slow, subtle movements are not necessarily sort of easier than any other type of practice, just more beneficial for us. And this is where this kind of practice, when you get familiar with it, when you don't need the sort of the guidance, is it becomes almost a meditation, because you could breathe in and out with the movement. So really coordinating the physical body and the breath together. These are all tools to help soothe and nurture that steadiness of the mind. Go ahead and we'll just do 2 more of these. Maybe there's barely any movement, but it's that thought process, there's that effort, there's that sort of drive behind it, the encouragement. So don't get wrapped up in what you cannot do. Focus on what you can't do. And then we'll let that go, relax out, especially if you have the legs bent a little bit, wiggle, a little shake, and have a look. And I didn't say at the beginning, but ideally this is a barefoot practice so that you can see what's going on. And you start to see the life, the energy flowing back into the feet. And when we're working in this way, working the way up, and when we work in the feet, it has an impact on the sort of the lymph process, okay? And we have lymph nodes all over the body, and that just helps in a major way in our systems. So we're going to add a little bit more now and let those toes relax. And we're going to work into the feet. And again, I'm just going to turn sideways, so hopefully you can see a bit better. And we're just going to point the toes away, well, the whole foot, I should say, rather. And then we draw the foot back, flexing. So we're extending, pointing the foot, and then drawing the foot back, extending. So now we're working the ankle joint, but you'll feel maybe muscles on the top of the leg as you point the feet away. And particularly as you push the heels away and draw the toes forward, you might feel that in the back of the legs. If there's any tension in the backs of those legs, just soften the knees or pop a little bit of padding underneath the legs. So, the backs of the knee joints don't complain, or the hamstrings. Make this a sort of easy movement. So again, we're going to do about 10 of these, pointing the toes away and gently encouraging the feet, the toes forward. And again, if you find it easier to do 1 foot at a time, it's quite a nice way of working. You can alternate. We're aiming for about 10 repetitions. And if you find it tricky sitting up, you can always lean back a little bit. Just give the lower back a rest. Like I said, you could be using the wall space or a chair. The problem with leaning back, and the wrists start to ache. So again, it's important to be comfortable. I'm just going to go ahead, do a few more. If you've been counting, great stuff. And hopefully if you keep using this practice, this recording, you get a little bit more familiar with the whole sequence. And there is a handout that goes with this that you can collect. Again, don't worry if you've lost count. And if you're looking at the feet, see if you can take the breath into the movement. Just experiment that. Breathe in one way, breathe out. So the range is your range. What's comfortable in your ankle joints, particularly if there are any issues relating to the joints. Okay, small movements. And of course, if your feet are cold and that causes tension in the joint, you can do this with socks on. Keep the feet warm. You can still wiggle the toes. You can still move the ankles, but ideally, no shoes. Yeah, I just do that one more time. Again, they can have a little jiggle, a little release. Turn around and face you. Yeah. And this time, so we're going to work the ankles. You've done the sort of flexing and extending. So we're going to do some rotations, and we can go clockwise and anti-clockwise. So again, you could break this down 1 foot at a time, but for the recording purposes, I'm going to do both at the same time. So I'm going to take my feet in opposite directions. You could do them in the same direction. So I've got 1 foot going clockwise and the other foot's going to go anti-clockwise. But each circumference is one complete movement. So again, see if you can coordinate that movement with the breath in and the breath out to complete that circle. Encouraging that breath to flow in and out through the nose. Two more of these in this direction. And I'm going to change and go in the opposite direction. You can really take your time, not breathing too quickly, not breathing too slowly. It's just right for you. And do two more. And sometimes it's suggested a movement of 10 repetitions. But just feeling, just noticing. Maybe after 4 or 5, you can feel the effects, and that might be enough today. And relax that out. Pause for a moment. Just take a little time to feel what you feel. I always encourage you to do that rather than just letting me tell you how you're going to feel. And just take a little time to notice. I can feel the sensations in my feet and my toes. Having done those few movements, I can see that my feet look a little bit more energized. The blood's flowing down there. My feet are a little pinker. Okay, lovely. Just going to before, I want to do a little bit more on the feet, but to get to the feet, we need to reach them. So I want to do a little bit of work for the hip. So I'm going to ask you to bend your right knee. You can keep the left leg straight or out to the side. I'm just going to gently rotate that knee out and in a few times. So it doesn't have to be really close to you. It can be a softer movement. Just thinking about working into that hip joint just a little bit, just in anticipation so that we can actually go and reach that foot. Just do a little bit more work there in the foot. And then let that go. And if it's possible, we're going to slide that foot a little closer so that we can reach the foot. And if you find it not so easy to reach the foot, you do the best that you can. Maybe you can just get a little bit to the top of the foot. You can hold onto the right leg and you can start to massage or just rub gently up and down the top of that foot, the sides, wherever you can reach, without any discomfort. And if you feel that you can work on rotating that leg out a little bit more and maybe bringing this foot a little closer, you can get more of the foot and you can massage the sole of the foot if you prefer. Just rub the foot, whatever feels nice. So if this feels a little sticky or tricky in the hip or knee, then just keep the leg a little further out, keep wiggling the foot, reach where you can. Just see a little sort of conscious movement rubbing up and down into the foot. Yeah. And if possible, we're holding on, however is comfortable, to that right shin bone. So we can hold on to the right foot. And we're sort of like cranking the handle with the ankle joint. And you're just being a little bit more sort of involved in that rotation. And if there's space between your toes, you can even try getting your fingers sort of sandwiched between the toes. If that doesn't feel great, just hold the foot. So still stimulating right into the toes, into the foot, into the ankle. And again, a few times one way, and then a few times the other. So it's just a slightly more of a movement, not necessarily for the ankle, but more maybe for the hip and the knee. So just be mindful with that one. And I'm going to let that go. Oh, and then massage the foot, slide that leg away, give that leg a little shake out, a little thank you to the hip and the thigh and the knee. And then we'll do the same for the other side. So maybe your hip moves relatively easy, that's great, but we just do that little warming up, that preparation. If it doesn't feel like it wants to move, and you're aware of that, and you're working sort of kindly and lovingly towards yourself. I always kind of pop my hand around the back of the knee just to help prevent any pinching in and around the knee if there's a knee issue. So again, if you can't quite get the foot high up, that's fine. Just be where you can, where maybe you could reach down and give the foot a little bit of a massage. Or maybe you could take the leg across or hold the leg a little bit, or again, have some padding to help with that. Again, to sort of be creative. And if the fingers go between the toes, that feels comfortable, have a go. And just that little ankle rotation. And try and let the foot be relaxed when you're doing this. So this time, you know, the ankle isn't doing the work. You're helping the ankle find this movement. Changing direction. So again, if you find one of these particular movements helpful, beneficial, pause the recording, stay a little bit longer, but you know, don't overdo it all the time, honoring the body. And let that side go and release. And maybe give the foot a little massage before you take it back. And then extending that leg away. Good. Okay. Wonderful. So a little wiggle, ease the hips. I'm going to move a bit more now into the knees and back into the hip joints. So we're going to start on your right side. And we're going to hold around the back of that right knee so that the knee will bend. And then you can slide that foot towards you, bring the thigh towards the body. Now, with this little movement, you know, the guidelines are is to work with the foot and the leg off the floor. So all the time, the foot is suspended. And it's this little movement where we extend the leg, working through the knee, really lifting the kneecap as we lift the leg up, and then hugging the thigh towards it, and trying to sort of resist the urge of sort of really rounding as we come forward. Try and sit nice and tall as you extend and flex. So that's a little movement. Again, pop some cushion or padding underneath the bum cheeks if that helps. But if you find that keeping the leg lifted is, you know, that's not going to work, okay, that's fine. Let the leg slide as you extend it and keeping the heel down, and let the heel stay down as you draw the leg back. Both will work, and over time we'll strengthen the muscles as well as sort of assisting, you know, the knee joint. So as we work these thigh muscles, it will help in some degree for the knees. And also we're getting into the flexion of the hip joint as well. So let's go ahead. I'm going to do about 8 to 10 of these. So I'm going to keep my foot lifted, nice and tall. Try and breathe in and out through the nose. And we can extend the leg and even flex the foot a little bit. And then bend the knee. So you can breathe out here as you hug the knee in. And we'll inhale, extend the leg. exhale. That's 2. Keep it going. So inhaling, shoulders relax. Exhale for 3. Inhale, stand away. Exhale, 4. Inhale. Exhale, 5. Inhale, light grip, remember. And exhale for 6. Inhaling. Exhaling, 7. We'll do one more. Inhaling. Exhaling, 8. Relax that leg down. Give a little shake to sort of feel how the body feels. Massaging is always nice. And I can really feel this right side is already more relaxed than the left side feels. So I'm going to go ahead and try that on the left side. So again, if you need to slide the foot up and down the mat, that's great. So let's go ahead, bend the left knee, cup the hands or interlock the hands around the back of the knee, and we'll draw that knee in towards the body. So you could do this with the foot sort of loose and relaxed, or you could be a bit more active as you extend the leg. So let's inhale, extend away, push the heel away, really lift that kneecap, and then exhale, hug thigh towards the chest. The foot can relax if you prefer. Inhaling, leg extends, exhaling. So breathe in, leg stretches away, exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhaling. And exhale. It's about 6. Inhale. Wasn't counting. And then exhaling. 7. Breathing in. Breathing out. Relax, pop that foot down, slide that leg away. Give them a little massage. Pause again, notice how that feels in the body. Really important sort of step in the practice is just observing the transition. So there's much of a reward and benefit as the doing aspects of the practice. Gives you that moment just to feel and connect, rather than being in a rush to get on with it. So we're going to come back a little bit more into the hips, and work those knees a little bit. So we're going to bend that right knee. And we're going to add a bit more of that internal, external movement that we were doing previously. So you can help encourage the leg to roll out, and then you let it roll in. You might roll a little bit on your buttocks, but try and keep both sit bones down on the mat rather than rolling completely over. All you're doing is moving the pelvis and not the thigh bone in the hip joint. So we're trying to get a little bit more into that space. So again, knee doesn't come in greatly into the midline. It's more of a natural movement to rotate out. And again, so if there's been any hip replacements with these, take it really easy. There'll be a certain range that is helpful if you've had a hip replacement. Lovely. And I'm going to bring it back to center. I'm going to do the same kind of thing. You could carry on with that if that feels the better place to work. Or you hold onto the back of the knee and you trace a circle. You're drawing a circle with your kneecap. It's just a little slightly different movement. And we're going to go in one direction. Again, if you find it easier to keep the foot on the floor, it will restrict the movement a little bit, and we don't want to put tension in the knee. So if that foot can hover off the mat, even better. Okay. But we just do the best that we can. Yeah, lovely. And then we'll change direction. So little knee circles. So as a consequence, as we sort of focus on the movement of the knee, it travels all the way down into the movement of the hip joint. So again, the depth or the range that you explore will determine the amount of effort and what's appropriate for that joint. As we get into this movement, I know we're working, talking about joints, but it affects the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons attached to that joint. So although we're saying we're working towards the hip, you will feel the knock-on effect, maybe over the glutes, around the back of the waist, or here in these muscles in the groins. Again, we'll relax, shake that leg out, give that a little release. Wiggle the bottom. Wonderful. Let's try that on the other side. So we start with that in and out action for the hip. So you can bend the knee. And again, the angle is up to you. It could be a very soft bend in and out. That feels better. Again, if there's hip replacements, be careful of that. Or maybe a little closer. And you're just steering the knee in and out, trying to keep both sit bones down on the floor so you don't roll off or over to one side. And you're not pushing or forcing, I'm just steering, almost guiding. I'm not sort of trying to push down so that leg will get to the floor or the knee will come as far over. So examining, being inquisitive in what I feel is a consequence of that movement. So I often put these little movements in my own sort of personal practice just to get everything moving before I move through something maybe a bit more vigorous. They all have benefits and they all have their place and time that we can really reap those benefits. So let's go ahead and see if we can do that movement by steering the knee. So we feel that in the hip joint. So again, if you can hold on to the knee and lift the leg up, or you could hold on to the front of the knee if that doesn't cause too much problems. And you're steering around, just getting a little bit of movement. Again, letting that foot hover if possible. I'm about to have my yoga cat join me. Loves to come to all of these classes. Sorry if there's any mewing sounds. Can we change direction? So this whole practice is said to help in rejuvenating joints. And as I say in all my classes, it's called a practice. It means we have to put some effort in. We have to do something to find the benefits of the practice. Let that one go after this rotation. Ease that leg out. If you prefer, you could lean back, just do that little bottom wiggle. A little bum wiggle, knees can be bent. And just to add one more little movement for those hip joints. So in this one, just have a little look first before you join in. We're going to have both knees bent and the feet on the floor. And then we're trying to work towards where we get the soles of the feet to come together. So we have what's called like this butterfly shape, so that the knees can drop down and then we can scoot them together. So we've got a little bit more of that internal, external rotation, both legs at the same time. Now, if you prefer what we did previously, you can do one leg at a time. And the same sort of alignment applies here, that your feet could be really close towards your groins or a little further away if that makes for happier hips and knees. So we're just guiding, remember, we're not pushing them now, we're letting the knees softly open out to the sides. And then we're scooping them back in a little bit. It can really help to kind of sit as tall as you can. Think about hugging the navel back towards the spine so you get some abdominal activation. And maybe feel that movement over the sit bones and deep tissue of the buttock muscles. You might find that's helpful using the hands. You might find that you can hold on to the ankles and just let the knees rise and fall. And as I do that, I bring my feet a little bit closer together. So there's various ranges that you can play with. Again, if the knees don't like this deep flexion, then the feet will be further away. So hopefully you can find the best place for you. Yeah, I'll just do one more of these. So I'm not being sort of strict with the counting, just getting through the sequence for you so you have this to work with. Maybe you can have a go without the recording, which you get a little bit more familiar. You know, maybe not doing the whole sequence if you don't have time. Maybe focus on the areas that you feel that need that little bit more attention, and that can be just as helpful. Let's do one more movement. And I'm going to move away from the legs, the knees, and the hips. I'm going to come into the fingers and the wrists. Yeah, let that go. Wonderful. Okay, so you could extend the legs out, give them a little shake out. I like to sit as comfortable as you can. You don't have to sit cross-legged. And then hopefully now we can sort of get comfortable and work with the hands. And by all means, you know, sit on a chair if that feels better now that we've moved away from the legs and the legs can be comfortable. So let's work on the hands. So we're working on extending, really reaching out, like trying to make your fingers as long as possible and your hand span as big as possible. And then I tuck my thumbs in and I gently wrap all my fingers around the thumbs. And then you open, really active. And then you relax and make a little face. So that's all it is. It doesn't have to be aggressive. So you could breathe in and then breathe out. And go ahead and join in if you haven't already, extending the fingers. And then making that little face. Extending the fingers. If you don't like the thumb tucked in, then you keep the thumb out. Still make that little fist. That can be nice if the thumb joins. And sometimes it's just a process of working out what is best for you. And again, you could do this one hand at a time if you find that helpful. I'm going to go ahead. One more of these movements. Really reaching out. And then making that fist. And then just give the hands a little gentle shake. I'm going to work into the wrist joints now, just like we did with the feet. So I'm going to do it this way for you. So you can, like you're trying to hold up the ceiling. And then you're going to try and flex. So you're bringing the fingertips towards the forearms. And you're going to go the opposite way. Okay, so you could help this if you prefer with one hand. So you could hold it, extend back, flex, and extend. Flex, so you're not making a fist, you're keeping the fingers long, and extend. Change sides. So if you prefer one hand at a time, it's quite nice. And you can have the arms extended and flex. You don't have to hold the arms up. You can extend and flex, extend and flex, extend and flex. So as we're doing these movements, let's keep that going. We're sort of massaging the wrist joint, but as a consequence, remember to create this movement, we're activating the energy in the muscles. So the forearms, you might feel that somewhere if you haven't used those muscles that way, or particularly if you spend a lot of time on a computer or a phone. And so you can really feel that these little wrist movements are great for any kind of repetitive strain. Okay, but moving sensitively if you have any of those issues. Good. Let that go. Shake out the hands. And we'll do some wrist circles. So you could make a soft fist, or you could let the hands relax, whatever feels right. And you're trying to make as much of a rotation as you can. So this is what it looks like with both hands. Well, I like to hold one hand and really feel. I can feel all the muscles and the movement that's created in trying to make this movement. And we'll go the opposite way. So again, I encourage you to find what works best for you, feeling your way with the action. If you haven't changed direction, make sure you have. So do a few of those. I'll let that go. Get those fingers, wrists a little shake out. Don't make the hands sort of really floppy. And then we'll do a little bit of work for the fingers and the thumb. So we'll do this one hand at a time. And basically all you're going to do is you're going to do a few rotations. So trying to encourage the thumb and the fingers to be relaxed. So your hand is steering the movement. So a few times in one direction. So a little like we did with that sort of ankle crank movement where we were steering the ankle. A couple of times. You could do 10 in each direction if you want to. But just the timing of this, I'm just going to sort of go through just a few at a time and notice which hand or which finger moves easier. The thumb joint will move really easily for most of us. Yeah. And try not to let the finger do the work. Use the other hand. So the finger that you're focusing on is relaxed. Encourage that finger to be relaxed. Change through, go to the middle finger. Again, you might find it's a little easier to have the arm supported on something so that then you can relax a little bit more. Change into the ring finger. Maybe if you've had a massage before, maybe if you've had a treatment like that they've done a hand massage, you might have had similar movements. It's very nice and soothing. Going over to the little finger. But it's a practice you can do for yourself. All right. Okay. Relaxing that. Just pause for a moment. And just like the feet, I can feel a little more energy in my fingers. Pink skin looks flushed and happy. So a nice practice for if you have some like Raynaud's disease, where you have the sort of the joint issues in the fingers and the hands get cold. You get that white block. Really helpful in trying to soothe that and prevent that as much as you possibly can with that condition. So swapping hands if you haven't. A couple of times in each direction, encouraging the fingers to be as relaxed and as floppy as they can. And we've still got a few more of the key areas. What this practice focuses on is the key joint areas. So ankles, knees, hips, wrists, my fingers. In a moment, we're going to move a little bit into elbow joints and shoulder joints. And particularly shoulders that you can carry a lot of tension, changing fingers if you haven't. So just focusing on those, and then into the neck. And then just a little bit of spinal movement. as the other main sort of joint area. And again, the spine could take several hours to work on in itself. Okay, so it'd just be a simple little movement for the spine. Yeah, so just working at your own pace. If I'm going too fast, now you can pause the recording. And with any movement, any sort of physical activity or exercise, if that's what you want to call it, this is a yoga practice for me. It's mind, body, not just movement for body, more than exercise. But it's important after any session like this to make sure you hydrate, drink plenty of water. If you have a little time to rest, relax, and we'll have a time for a relaxation at the end. It's always important in the practice. So making sure you drink to keep the fluid flowing. Again, these joints are really like that. Okay, and then let's relax that, wiggle out the fingers, feel that for a moment. If you need to change position, go ahead, change position. And we're going to move into the elbows and the shoulders. So again, you could do this one arm at a time, but for timing in this practice, we're going to do both. So you're going to work with the arms extended, arms pointed towards the sky, arms roughly horizontal with the earth, but important the wrists are in line, the elbows are roughly in line with the shoulders. And all we're doing, we're going to bring the fingertips to touch the shoulders, but without the elbows dropping down. So keep this upper arm always in that horizontal position. That's all we do is gently bring the fingertips to the shoulders, keep the elbows lifted, and then we can extend the arms. So you could exhale, fingers to shoulders, inhale, arms extend. So again, if you have any shoulder issues or any problems relating in and around the shoulders and the neck, you start with just a few repetitions. Don't get wrapped up in that you must do 10 of these. I do one more of those. Fingertips touch. And then relax the shoulders down. Let's just go ahead and do a few shoulder circles here. A couple of times in one direction. I'm going up and back. You could come forward if you prefer. Just a massage across the shoulders and the neck. Good, lovely. And we'll change direction. And then we'll do a little bit more releasing those shoulders. I'm going to pop the fingertips onto the shoulders. I'm going to take the elbows out to the side this time. So a little bit like what we did with the knees to work the hips. We're going to use the elbows. So you're going to draw some circles with your elbows. It could be a small circle. Or you could exaggerate that if that feels comfortable. Again, just a few times in one direction. I'm trying to keep the elbows sort of in line with the shoulders so they're not dropping all the way down. You can make them as big as you wish and squeeze back if you want more. But we're focusing on the more subtle side of this practice. When you've done a few, that direction will change. And again, thinking about the breath in and the breath out that helps create this movement. Again, if there's shoulder issues, don't go to the point where you feel fatigued. We're just warming up, finding ease. You can always do more as we build up on these practices over time. Do one more of those movements. And then we can relax, ease out the shoulders. Let's just do a little shoulder lift and lower. So you're controlling the movement, you're not letting them drop. So you could breathe in to lift and lower. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhaling, lift. Exhale, lower. And again, inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. And again, the shoulder area and the neck, we could spend a long time on, but just get familiar with the movements and you could add more as you progress through the practice. So we'll do a little bit of work in the neck. So if there are any neck issues, less is more. Don't try and copy exactly what I'm doing. Just be really sensitive in this area. So all we're going to do is encourage the left shoulder, so the left ear to move towards the left shoulder. So you feel a little sensation of the muscles in the right side of the neck. If you dip the chin slightly, as well as taking the ear to the shoulder, you'll feel the muscles work or react slightly differently. If you lifted the chin and still take the ear to the shoulder, again, you'll just feel the range of muscles that are involved in that action. So somewhere between that slightly lifted or dipped or halfway point might be the place that just gives the neck the right area that it wants to release into. And when you want to change sides, instead of using the neck muscles, use your hand against the side of the head, push the head back up. So it's a softer release. And we'll try that the opposite way. So right ear, right shoulder. Again, not forcing the head anywhere. And the weight of the head is quite heavy. So again, this is why we're always mindful of any neck issues. And think it might feel better if the chin's slightly dipped, or you might feel it's better or works the area that you need to focus on with the chin slightly lifted. Again, try to resist the urge as well of the shoulder coming up. Both shoulders are as relaxed as they can be. When we come out, use the hand against the side of the head. And then bring the head back to center. So you could repeat that a few times, and each time the muscles will respond maybe a little differently. But I want to add a little more movement. So again, if the neck is an issue, don't go so deep. But we're going to have a little look. We're going to keep the chin parallel with the floor, and we're going to have a little look over the shoulder. So we're not dropping the chin down. We're just kind of keep the chin in line with the floor. Again, not sort of using your shoulders to help create more movement. So working very gently on the neck. So there might be barely a movement here for some of us. Okay, but enough for the neck muscles to respond and receive the benefits. You're ready to breathe out. Let's bring the head back through center and all the way to the opposite side. And a little look over that shoulder. And then we come back to the center. Pause. These are really good movements that you could do anytime if you're sort of sitting and you're well supported and you're sitting upright. You can do the side to side movement, lying down, reclining position. That's helpful as well. And help, with the weight of the head is supported in that one. And so we're just going to do a little movement where we almost like we're trying to trace a smile from one shoulder across the collarbones to the other shoulder. So it looks a little like this. And again, just think about your neck before you attempt this. So I'm taking my chin over to one side and down, and then I'm running the chin across the collarbones. So it comes up to the other side, and then it goes down again, and just retracing that line. So again, if you think this is okay for your neck, just have a little go, but nice and slowly. We're not going all the way around. We're not doing head circles. It's just in this sort of front plane of the body. It's just a little bit of a combination of both those movements, but with movement. Yeah, and the next time that you feel that you've worked equally through both sides, we'll bring the head back to center. Keep the chin down. Yeah, and then when you feel that you're in that central position, then lift the chin up. And then maybe a few of those little easy shoulder circles again. A couple of times one way, and then the other. Go ahead and just extend the legs out. If they've been folded, or a little wiggle on your bottom. Shake the legs, anything that feels like it's gone a bit tight or stiff, if you've sat for a while. And then we'll just add a very little simple spinal movement. So in this version, when we're floor-based, we can work with the knees bent and the feet on the earth. If there's reasonable flexion in the spine, then you can have the legs extended, but this might be a better option. And if you're on a chair, then it'll be a little bit easier to get into. So we're trying to flex the spine. So that's where we're trying to shorten the front of the body and make the back of the spine longer. And then we're going to extend. So that's where we want the front of the body to feel longer, and as if the back of the body is getting shorter. So it's not just pushing your ribs forward and back. It's like you're trying to make the spine curl into this C shape. Tailbone comes under, chin comes in towards the chest. Then when I lift up and lengthen, I'm squeezing my shoulder blades gently together so all this opens, not taking the head back. If there's neck issues, we're not dropping the head back at all. The chin can just lift a little. So rounding, maybe feel that moving through the sit bones. And then lifting. We'll just do that one more time. So this is a sort of seated cat action, which is usually taken on hands and knees. This is just as beneficial. And then let's relax, let that go. And back and extend the legs out, give the legs a little shake. And I'm going to encourage you to come to lie down. If you have the space, I'd like to come and lie down on your yoga mat if you're practicing on the floor. If you've got a carpeted floor, that's fine. You don't need a yoga mat. And maybe when you come to lie down, you have a cushion for the head. Now, if you're in your chair and it's a comfortable chair, you can stay in your chair. If you're in bed, that's great. You're as comfortable as you can be. So when we're on the floor, we can have, if your cat allows you, mat space. But I like a little bit of padding underneath the back of the head. So if you're lying on the floor and the floor is hard, it's just nicer for the mind and the brain to have some softness to be supported on. And my legs are fully extended here, or you could have something underneath the backs of the knees, or you could have the knees bent. So coming into what's known as Shavasana, the relaxation pose. So particularly because we've sat for a while, it's nice for the spine ladder, sort of natural shape of the curve of the spine to be supported by the earth. So get as comfortable as you can, and I'd like you to stay there. The eyes could be closed or softly focus. Have a little wiggle around, just making sure that you're as comfortable as you can be at this point. And thinking about the breath coming in and out through the nose, that yogic breath focus. Feeling the ground, letting the ground hold you if you're lying down. Just taking the time to notice as you move through the practice. Notice the effects of that practice physically as well as mentally. And as you reflect, don't worry about whether you did it right or wrong, whether you're good or bad at it, just the experience. And some movements will flow freely and easily for us. Others will take a little more time, a little more effort. It's finding that balance, working with the body at the body's pace. And the body's pace is a lot different to the mind's pace. And that can be helpful to remember. So moving in time with the body's needs, not the mind's needs. If you're comfortable to let the eyes close, then go ahead. And really feel the embrace of the earth beneath you, holding you, supporting you, your chair, wherever you are, whatever you're propped up against. Feel that support, encouraging you to relax now. You don't need to move the body. You don't need to work the muscles. You can allow all those physical layers of your being to relax just for these few moments. And there's nowhere you need to be just for these next few moments. Really feeling the effects of the practice and encouraging them in these few moments of Shavasana to take root, consolidate. And when we practice yoga, I always say that the effects of the practice will resonate long after you've stepped off the yoga mat. All there is for these next few moments, whether the surroundings that you're in are busy or noisy, you accept that that might be the case, but all that is there for you to concentrate on is your breath, the breath in and the breath out. You could carry on in Shavasana for as long as you like, as long as is comfortable. If you feel ready to move, then you begin to wiggle fingers and toes. You can continue in Shavasana. This recording will stop and you can linger as long as you like in your relaxation space, feeling the benefits. And when you feel ready, you can take all the time you need to come away from that space. For those of you that feel ready, in a couple of minutes, quality time is beneficial. But if you feel ready, you can wiggle fingers and toes. You take a deeper breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Letting go of any tension with that exhalation. Maybe you could stretch the arms or hug knees in towards the chest. Again, being mindful of how the body feels. No quick movements, just nice and slowly. And taking your time to come back to seated. And when you come back to that upright position, if you're still reclining, I'd like you just to pause again. Take a little time to think about how you felt as you began the practice. And notice the effects now. And do this every time we take this practice. It may be different every time because it's a different moment. The results may not be exactly the same. What you find challenging might feel easy or vice versa, depending on where we are in that moment. And just honoring that. And to close the practice, we're just going to bring the palms together, letting thumbs nestle at that heart center. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bowing the head to the heart. easing forward, letting the palms find the earth or connect to the legs. Thank you for joining me and Izzy. Om Shanti.